Hey everyone, welcome back to the rocket launch tutorial. And in our last part, we had ended our lesson by making the rocket move up in a smooth animation using the timer function and the set y and the get y functions. So we had ended our lesson with this, and what this was doing was this was making the rocket move up smoothly like this. All right. So in our second part in this lesson, we are going to learn to control the motion of our rocket using keyboard buttons. So we are going to learn about variable and we are going to learn about keyboard events in JavaScript. So let's start. So first of all, this code that we had written, we know that this line of code was making the rocket move 0.2 units above its current position. And by putting this inside the timer, we were able to run this line of code again and again every 20 milliseconds. That is what was giving the effect of making it look like the rocket is moving up. So now we know here that if we change this 0.2, okay, if we change this 0.2 to 0.1, that will slow down our rocket. If we change this to 0.05, it will slow down the rocket more. So we know that we can control the speed of our rocket using this number by changing this number. So let me just first of all keep it as 0.1 for now. And let me just show you one more thing before we dive into the keyboard events and variables. So you see here, there is a prettify button on the top of your code. Okay. Now what prettify does is, see, just click on this button and you will see that this rocket ship line of code got an extra space here. So what this space is called is, the space is called as an indent. And the benefit of indenting your code, this adding space helps you read the code properly. Like it gives you the notion that, okay, this line of code is inside the timer. So you will see the benefit of using indents as we write more and more complex code, where there are lines of code inside lines of code inside lines of code. Then if we keep on adding these extra spaces, then we will be able to figure out easily which code is inside which part of the code. So yeah, just use prettify button to properly indent your code, or you can just, if you don't want to use prettify, then you can just use the tab button on your keyboard to add that proper spacing. Cool. So yeah, now let's come back to today's lesson. And we are going to start by creating a variable. So what exactly is a variable? A variable is something that can store a value. Okay. A variable just stores a value. This value can be anything. It can be a number, can be a name, it can be a list of numbers, it can be a list of names, it can be anything. Variables help you store data in a code. The use of these variables is that what we can do is we can change and manipulate the values of a variable throughout our code. So what I mean by that is, let me show you. So I'm going to show you first of all how to create a variable. You can create a variable by first of all telling your computer that, hey, I am creating a variable. So tell your computer that you are creating a variable. You have to use a keyword. You have to use a word called let, or you have to use a word called var. So when you start a line of code with let or var, it's telling your computer that, hey, I'm creating a new variable. And then you have to give a space and then give your variable a name. So I want to create a variable to control the speed of my rocket. So I'm going to create a variable with a name speed. All right. So you have this line of code now is telling your computer that, hey, create a variable with the name speed. And now what I can do is I can give this variable some value, any value that I want. So I'm going to give the speed variable the value of 0.1. Why am I doing this? Because now inside my timer function, where it says set the rocket ship's y position to the current y position plus 0.1, I can remove this plus 0.1 from here and say set the y position of the rocket to the current y position plus the value of the speed variable. And when your computer reads this, It will replace the variable speed with the value 0.1 on its own. And the benefit of doing this now is that we can change the value of speed throughout our code. And whatever the value of speed, whatever is the new value of speed, using that value, your computer will be moving the rocket inside the timer function. So right now, if you run your script, your rocket will move as it was moving earlier. It will just move up smoothly. All right. So if I reset my game, and here, now what I want to do is I want to tell my computer that when I press the space key, I want the rocket to stop, to stop. So we are going to introduce a concept of keyboard events. Now you see, whenever you are playing a game, what happens? You can click on different buttons in your game, and as you click on different buttons, then different actions happen in the game. If you're playing a game on your phone, you can click on different buttons, you can tap on the characters, you can tap on different areas of your screen, and different actions happen in the game. If you are playing a game on your computer, you can click anywhere on the scene, or you can press different keyboard buttons, and based on how your game is created, some things will happen in the game. So these actions of clicking or pressing a keyboard button, so these are user defined actions. And what's happening is we need some way for our computer to relate a user action to a game action. When a user does something in the real world, something different should happen in the game. When I press a keyboard button in a game, something should happen inside the game, right? So a user action is a real world action, and the game action is what happens inside the digital world. So the way a computer is able to relate a user action to a game action is through events. So these user actions are called events. Clicking on a screen or pressing down your mouse button or pressing down a keyboard button, these are called events. And we tell our computer to listen for these events. And when these events happen, perform some other action in the game. So what we do is, to make our computer listen for these events, we add event listeners. We add event listeners in our code. So to add an event listener, let me just show you how do we add an event listener. We just write the word add, then capital E event, then capital L listener. We add this word add event listener. So whenever you write add event listener, it's telling your computer that I'm going to define an event that my computer needs to listen for. So you write add event listener and you follow that with a pair of round brackets. Now inside the round brackets, we will define what event should my computer be listening for and what is going to happen when the user performs that action. So it needs two inputs. Just like set y needs one input, create timer is a function that needs three inputs. So add event listener needs two inputs. It needs an event name and follow that with game action. So first of all, let's see how do we write an event name. So there are predefined event names already present in JavaScript. Like whenever you press a keyboard button, it's called a key down event. Whenever you release a keyboard button, there is a key up event. Whenever you click on the screen or click on an object, you have a click event. Whenever you press a mouse, like press the mouse button down, you have a mouse down event. There are lots of other events, okay? So we are going to start by using a key down event. Okay, key down is a predefined event that makes your computer detect whenever a keyboard button is pressed. So here inside add event listener, the very first input inside the round brackets, so I'm going to delete everything here, and the very first input that we have to write here is which event should my computer be listening for, and that is the key down event that I want my computer to listen for. So key down is going to be enclosed inside single quotes or double quotes. So write a pair of double quotes inside which we just simply write key down. So key down is basically telling my computer that, hey, whenever a user presses any of the keyboard buttons, listen for that keyboard event, listen for the key down event. And then after the key down, we are going to write a comma. And then we will tell our computer what is going to happen in the game when a user presses a keyboard button. So here, to write the action, first write the word function. So whenever you write a function, functions define a set of actions that computers need to perform. So you follow the function word with a pair of round brackets and then with a pair of curly brackets. Now inside the curly brackets, you can write what needs to happen in the game when you press a keyboard button. So here, what I can say is, whenever any keyboard button is pressed, I'm going to say, change the value of speed to 0. So see, what have we written here? We are saying that inside my timer, move the rocket with this value of speed. So if we say speed is 0, what will that make our computer do? It will basically set speed to 0, so this line of code will not move our rocket anymore. As a result, our rocket should stop moving, right? So let's run our script and see whether this is working or not. So if we run the script here and see, press the space key and you will see that the rocket has stopped moving. In fact, if you had pressed any key on your keyboard, the rocket would have stopped moving, because we are not specifying which keyboard button to detect here. We are saying that whenever any keyboard button is pressed, set the value of the speed variable to 0. So you see, right now we just saw the use of this variable as well. See, we had earlier written the number 0.1 here itself. But in that scenario, if you had the number 0.1 written here, we couldn't change that number again and again while running the code. But once we replace that 0.1 with the variable speed, now we can change the value of speed variable anytime we want. And whatever is the new value of speed variable, that will be reflected inside my timer as well. So now we are saying that any time a keyboard button is pressed, set the speed value to 0. We can reverse this. We can say that when the game starts, don't move the rocket, set the speed to 0 initially. And whenever any keyboard button is pressed, set the speed to 0.1. So now if you run your script, you will see that when you run the script, the rocket is not moving because the speed is set to 0. Now, if you press any keyboard button on your keyboard, you can press any of the keyboard buttons. You can press the escape key, the caps lock key, shift key, control key, function key, alt key, or any of the alphabet keys, any of the number keys, any key on the keyboard. The moment you press it, your rocket will start moving up. And why is it moving up? Because we are saying that whenever a keyboard button is pressed, change the speed to 0.1 using this event listener. So your computer is listening for any time the user, the player, is pressing the keyboard button, and whenever any keyboard button is pressed, it will change the value of speed variable to 0.1. So now what I need to do is, I don't want the rocket to move up whenever any keyboard button is pressed. I only want the rocket to move up when the up arrow key is pressed. So how do we tell my computer to detect if the up arrow key is pressed or not? So we can do that using if-else conditions. So we are going to learn about if-else conditions. Okay, we are going to learn how do we write these conditions. So first of all, let's look into our event listener. Now you see here, we say add event listener, and then we are saying listen for the key down event. Okay, key down is a predefined event, and whenever key down event occurs, then perform this action. But nowhere in my code are we telling our computer to look for which key is pressed. So first of all, what we are going to do is, you see, this function is followed by a pair of round brackets. Inside the round brackets, we have to write the word event. What this is going to do is, see, you can press any keyboard button on your computer, right? And each keyboard button has a name in JavaScript. So what this event is going to do now is, this event is going to store the name of the keyboard button that you have pressed. That is why we have to, whenever the computer starts running this code here, it needs to store the value of the keyboard button that the user has pressed. So it will store the value of the keyboard button in this word event. Now what we can do is we can add the if else condition by checking if the name of the key is up arrow. So first of all, let me actually exit my full screen window and go to a new tab and search for keycode.info. So there is this website called keycode.info. If you open this link, this is a website that helps you identify the JavaScript names for all the keyboard buttons on your computer. Let me show you. If I press the up arrow key, you will see that up arrow key has a lot of JavaScript values. All right. So it has an event.key value. This is the name. This is the name that users can read. Event.key of up arrow key is called arrow up. And then there is a JavaScript key code as well. That is 38. So JavaScript also provides each of the keyboard button with a number. Each keyboard button has a number associated with it. And the number associated with the up arrow key is 38. And it's called event.key code. So we can use event.key or event.key code to find out whether my up arrow key is pressed or not. Alright, so similarly, if I press the down arrow key, you will see the down arrow key has a key code value of 40, and the name of the down arrow key in JavaScript is arrow down. See, capital A, capital D, everything else is small, but it says arrow down. This is the name of the keyboard button. So now in my code, in my JavaScript code in the HatchXR workspace, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here, I'm just going to take my cursor to a new line of code, and first of all, I'm going to tell my computer to check if the up arrow key is pressed or not. And to do that, I have to write the word if, if, followed by a pair of round brackets, and then follow it with a pair of curly brackets. So inside the round brackets, I will tell my computer to check if the up arrow key is pressed or not. So inside the round brackets, I write the condition. And then inside the curly brackets, I will write what will happen if that condition is true, is correct. So let me just tell you this way. If you pass your exams, you get to have ice cream. See, passing an exam is the condition. Only if you pass your exams, you get to have ice cream. If you don't pass your exams, you won't get ice creams, right? There is a condition and there is an action that will happen if the condition is correct or not. So what I want to say here in my code is if the up arrow key is pressed, only then set the value of speed to 0.1. So inside the round brackets of the if condition, I will write this event.key. Event is like a variable inside which your computer will store the data of the keyboard button that you have pressed. Now, the keyboard button that you have pressed would contain different values. It will contain a key code value, it will contain its name, it will contain a lot of JavaScript values. So the name of the keyboard button is stored in the event.key variable. So event.key double equal. You have to write double equal to for equating, for comparing. So you say event.key double equal to, and then check whether so event.key is the name of the key that you have pressed. And we have to check whether the name of the key that we have pressed is the name of the up arrow key. And the name of the up arrow key is arrow up. So we have to write that name inside double quotes. So if the name of the key that I have pressed is arrow up, if event.key is equal to arrow up, so we are checking whether the name of the key that we have pressed is equal to arrow up. If that name matches, then we will say the value of speed is equal to 0.1. So I just removed the line speed is equal to 0.1 from here and pasted it inside the curly brackets of the if condition. So now see, this if condition is inside the add event listener. So it has only one space, one indent. But the speed is equal to 0.1 is inside the if condition. So it has two spaces here, right? So this is where indents come in useful for. So now I can know that speed, when I look at the code, I know that speed is inside if condition and if condition is inside the event listener. So yeah, now we are saying that add event listener key down. So we are telling our computer to listen for any time a keyboard button is pressed, and then store the name of the keyboard button that we have pressed in the event variable. Then we check if the name of the key that we have pressed is equal to arrow up. So if you have pressed, let's say, the space key will have a different name. So event.key will have the name of the space key. And if you have pressed the space key, then the name of the space key is not arrow up, right? So this will not happen. Only when you have pressed the up arrow key, then the name of the up arrow key will match this name, arrow up. So double equal to here is a comparison operator. It compares the left-hand side value with the right-hand side value. In computers, equal to and double equal to are different. So in mathematics, equal to acts as assigning value and it also compares two values. Okay, it's just single equal to. But in computers, single equal to just assigns the right-hand side value to the left-hand side variable. In computers, when you want to compare two values, you have to use double equal to. So we are saying check for the name of the keyboard button that has been pressed, and if the name of that keyboard button is up arrow key, then speed should be 0.1. So now when I run the script, you will notice that currently nothing is happening. If you try to press any key on the keyboard, try to press any key other than the up arrow key, you will see nothing is happening in the game. But then the moment you press the up arrow key, your rocket starts moving. See? So what's happening here is this event listener is listening for keyboard button presses. Okay. So anytime any keyboard button is pressed, this event.listener will run. But this if condition will only run if the up arrow key is pressed. And there is no other code inside the event listener for the event listener to run when any other keyboard buttons are pressed. So now we were able to move the rocket up. What if now I want to make the rocket move down when I press the down arrow key? So what I can do is I can add more conditions. Just like I added this if condition here, I can add more conditions. Now see, when I want to add multiple conditions that are related to each other, when I press any keyboard button, it can be up arrow key or the down arrow key, right? It can be any one of those keys, right? So when you have these conditions related to each other, we use a word called else if. So if the first condition is not correct, then we are going to tell our computer to look for another condition. So we are going to say else if and then another condition inside a pair of round brackets. Here we will say check if the name of the key that we have pressed is arrow down. So write the word arrow down inside double quotes. A and D are capital, everything else is small. So check, first of all, whenever any keyboard button is pressed, first of all check if that button is the up arrow key. If it's not the up arrow key, only then check for if it's the down arrow key. So if it's the down arrow key, then what will happen? We write a pair of curly brackets. Inside the curly brackets, we can say speed is equal to minus 0.1. And now when you run the script, you will see that currently nothing is happening. But when you press the up arrow key, your rocket moves up. When you press the down arrow key, your rocket moves down. So see, now we are able to move the rocket up and down using the up and down arrow keys. Alright? Now we can similarly add more conditions. I can say here else if and say event dot key double equal to arrow, or I'm just going to say space. Okay, space is the name of the space key. And just know that all the alphabet keys have the name of their own alphabets. Okay, so the alphabet key A has the name of A. So if you want to see whether the A key is pressed, you can just write the character A here. So currently I want to check if the space key is pressed. So for space key, I just write if event.key double equal to, then a space character enclosed inside these double quotes. And then we write a pair of curly brackets outside the round brackets. And inside the curly brackets, I can say when the space key is pressed, then set speed to 0. So if the space key is pressed, then set the value of the speed variable to 0. So now when you run the script, you will be able to move the rocket up and down and then make it stop using the space key. Cool, right? So let's actually, I'm going to delete all of these comments from here. I can add it at the top if you guys want to refer to these comments, but these are not going to be that useful. So yeah, we have learned how to make the rocket move up and down. What if I want to make the rocket also move left and right? So what we need to do is, just like we were setting the y position of our rocket by saying set the y position to the current y position plus a speed variable, similarly, we can say rocket ship dot set the x position, so set x, and follow it with a pair of round brackets. Inside the round brackets, we can say find out the current x position of the rocket ship, so rocket ship dot set x. Now you will notice that as I'm typing, this is a smart code editor, so it will suggest you commands that you are writing. So while I'm typing rocket ship, it is suggesting me, do I want to write this rocket ship word here? And if I want to take in this suggestion, I can just press the enter key on my keyboard and this will autofill. If you don't want those suggestions, so let's say I'm writing rocket ship and if I don't want any of these suggestions, I can press the escape key and the suggestions will disappear. So just keep that in mind. And here I want to write rocket ship. I press enter to autofill this and say find out the x position of the rocket ship, right? So rocket ship dot then get x, get followed by capital X, and that needs to be followed by a pair of round brackets. So we can say rocketship.setx to rocketship.getx plus, and then see, we are currently using the speed variable to control the up and down speed of the rocket. So what I can do is I can here introduce a new speed variable. I'm going to call it speed x and say the speed x value is set to 0. So I'm going to use the speed x value to control the left and right speed of my rocket. So now I can say rocketship.setx to rocketship.getx plus speed x. See, the speed x is different from the first speed value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the very first speed variable to speed y and then change everywhere I was using the speed variable to speed y. It's just an easier naming convention of the variables that I'm going to use. It will be easier for anybody who is reading my code to know that speed y controls the up and down speed of my rocket and speed x controls the left and right speed of my rocket. So now that I have created another variable called speed x, and I'm saying that rocketship.setx to get x plus the speed x value in my key down events. Here I can say that if the left arrow key is pressed, then I want the rocket to move left. And if the right arrow key is pressed, I want the rocket to move right. So I'm going to write else if inside the key down event listener. And I can say else if followed by a pair of round brackets. And here I will say event.key double equal to, and inside double quotes I say arrow right with A and R capital here. So this is the name of the arrow right key, and then follow it with a pair of curly brackets. Now inside the curly brackets I'm going to write what is going to happen in the game when the right arrow key is pressed. So when the right arrow key is pressed, I want the rocket to move to the right side and only to the right side. So the value of the speed x variable, I want to set it as 0.1. I know that increasing the x position will make the rocket move to the right side. Yeah. So that is why speed x is what I'm giving a positive value. But I also don't want the rocket to be moving in the up and down direction when I press the right arrow key. So I'm saying that the speed y value should be set to 0 when the right arrow key is pressed. So see, speed x, setting the speed x to a positive value will make my rocket move to the right side. But let's say before I press the right arrow key, my rocket was moving up. So I also want the rocket to stop moving in the up direction before it starts moving in the right direction. So that is why I'm saying speed y should be set to 0. Now similarly, I can write another condition that says else if, and I can say if the right arrow key is pressed. So if the left arrow key is pressed. So I say else if event dot key double equal to, and inside the double quotes I say arrow left. And now I can say when the left arrow key is pressed, then speed x should become minus 0.1 and speed y should become 0. So stop the rocket in the up and down direction and move the rocket in the left direction. Now similarly, when the space key is pressed, I want the rocket to stop moving in all directions. So speed y should be set to 0 and speed x should be set to 0. And also, see, when the up arrow key is pressed, I want the rocket to only move in the up and down direction. So speed y should become a positive number, but speed x should become 0 now. Okay, if the speed x had some other values, then set the speed x value to 0 so that the rocket doesn't move in the left and right direction, it only moves in the up direction. And similarly, in the arrow down code, I will write speed y is minus 0.1 and speed x is equal to 0. Cool. So now with this done, when you run the script, you will see that you will be able to control the motion of your rocket in all 4 of these directions. So our lesson is almost complete. As your homework, what you can try doing is, just like we added a new variable to control the left and right motion of the rocket, we can now introduce a new variable, speed z, and make the rocket move in the front and back direction by pressing the Z and the X keys on the keyboard. You can try that as an homework from your side, okay? So introduce another variable called speed Z, then inside the timer, add the set Z to get Z plus speed Z line of code, and then change the value of speed X, speed Y, and speed Z as you press the up, down, left, right, space, and the Z and the X keys. So add that and then you can publish your project. To publish your project, all you have to do is log into your account here and then click on the remix button that you would be seeing on top of your screen. When you click on the remix button, you will get a dialog box asking for the name of your project. You can give it a name, click on the publish button, and then your project will be saved to your account. So whenever you want to access any of the projects that you have published, you can click on this profile icon here and select your My Projects button here. This will open up a new page that will show all the projects that you have published and saved in your account. Cool. Now, I just want to end the lesson by showing you how we can add some special effects in the game. So you will notice that in my game here, I have a particle system. This particle system is basically fire that is added to the bottom of the rocket that is turned off by default. So what I want to do is, when the rocket is moving up, down, left or right, I want the fire to be turned on. But when the rocket stops, I want the fire to stop. So here, when I'm saying if event.key double equal to arrow up, so if the up arrow key is pressed, then I'm just going to just press an enter key here after the speed x is equal to 0. And here I'm going to click on particle system. And if you scroll down, at the very bottom, you will find a line of code that says turn emitter on. Just click on this. This will start displaying the fire particles below the rocket when the rocket is moving up. You can copy this line of code from here and paste it after arrow down, after arrow right, and after arrow left as well, like this. What I'm going to do is, if the space key is pressed, then the rocket should stop. So then the fire should stop. So here, I'm going to click on the particle system and add another line of code that says turn emitter off. So turn the fire off. All right. It's a really simple line of code. You don't have to worry about how exactly this is implemented. It's just a special effect that we are adding in our game. So we are saying that anytime the up, down, left or right arrow keys are pressed, turn the fire on, but anytime the space key is pressed, turn the fire off. So now when you run the script, you will see that by moving the rocket up or down or left or right, there is a fire getting added to the bottom of the rocket, and then when you press the space key, fire stops. Alright? Good. I hope you guys learned something new in this lesson. We covered about if-else conditions, we covered about keyboard events, we covered about variables. So practice this, add your own modifications to the project, share your final output in the comment section. And yes, I would love to see what all of you are building and help you out with anywhere you're facing any problems. All right. See you guys in the next lesson. Bye-bye.